Going live on the YouTube now. Just hit the buttons, give it a couple of seconds, and we'll get rocking. I'll zoom up again. Everyone see my screen okay? I didn't hear or see anything. You see my screen okay?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, Alan, I can see it.
Cool.
Yes, we can see that.
Right, getting started with this stuff then. So welcome everybody. Another online London Excel Meetup. We have Isaac and Dick here today for their separate presentations on forecasting in Excel and then an introduction to the XLPublish Addin. Just going through my usual chat so we can get to the good stuff. First up, just speaking a bit about events that we've got coming up. So next month, we have, well, I've still got today's event at the top, that was intended. We've got Brandon Oakley, who are both here now in the call. So you can always speak to them if you're interested on their presentation. But they're talking about data steps from spreadsheet to Dataverse. And that event is created, it's on the meetup page, so you can always read more about it in the description there, as they're going to tell a story, the two of them. I'm quite interested on how they're going to co-present this. That's what I want to see.
That's the challenge.
See how they get along with that. Yeah, it should be very interesting. Then the 23rd, so same month, because first month we're going to double this up now because that's our first in-person event, which is kind of the plan from now on. One online and one in person as we move forward, hopefully. And that will be Claire, who's also in the call at the moment. And that is all, once again, that event is not created yet, but it will come up soon. But the date and speaker topic, etc., is confirmed. It's called Date Night because it's going to be all about dates, dates and times in Excel, from understanding them through to tips, through to functions. You know, it's a common struggle for Excel people, the handling of dates and times and the various intricacies of what comes with that. And then I was wondering what was going on today when I was setting this up. What did I do with October? I seem to have missed one. So on the 10th of November, I'll have to sort out October, unless I did and forgot about it. Victor is confirmed as a speaker for the 10th of November, coming from Nigeria. Topic not yet confirmed, but we'll try and sort that out soon and get the events up in due course. So we have some dates there that you can always log in your calendar if you're interested. You know, not all the information yet, but at least we've got a date that people can kind of plan for if you're interested, especially that in-person one for those who can. Other things to talk about, it was quite a while ago, now end of June, but that was the end of the Cloud Skills Challenge that we organised. And I did send out a message, I don't know, I think it was 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, about that, which you probably all saw. But I just thought I'd bring it up again now because it's the first live event since then, just to show that we had, 48 people take part, and there's a list of those who attended 100% of that challenge, which was 25 modules. So special applause, I guess, for those who took the advantage to learn, really took the Microsoft Learn modules. Yeah, and some of those even won something. So the big prize went to Karen Mauer with the Surface Pro 2 laptop. Then we had Claire, who's obviously here, taking the headphones and the little bit soft toy and other material for Hannah Chidwick, sorry. And those will hopefully be with them soon. I don't know if you received anything yet.
I haven't yet.
Hopefully they'll be there soon. Anything else to say? I think it's my usual thing to note. So common questions that I get asked. Yes, we are live at the moment on YouTube, and this live recording is also being recorded as we speak So as soon as this finishes, YouTube will do their thing, which takes about 30 minutes. And then the recording will be there for people to catch up on if you need to do any of that. If you want to catch up with any of maybe the forecasting tools that Isaac does and have the ability to pause and rewind and follow along, then feel free to do that. As Tayo's just put the recording link in the Zoom call. There is a file on that note that Isaac has provided, so that if you're interested in following along to an extent live, if you can, so the recording's great for that because you've got more control. Then I know Taya put that into, oh, she's just done it again. It's in that chat twice. And I'll have to put it on the YouTube unless you can do that, Taya, while I'm talking in a minute for the YouTube audience. But this information will also be brought in a follow-up email. As usual, we'll share files that we've got and the recording link and anything else, upcoming events. So you'll all be reminded of this stuff. You haven't got to write it all down now. This information is also in the meetup description as well. So plenty of places to get it. If you want the follow-up email, make sure you've RSVP'd. Usual stuff for those who are regulars. You hear me say this every time. So it's more for those who are new. Make sure you've actually RSVP'd if you want that email, because it only goes to those who have. And that should be the end of me. Isaac, are you ready and willing to take this on, my friend? Cool.
Okay, I can start.
Yeah, go for it, mate. You're all up, screen shared.
Okay, so basically, I'm going to be talking about forecasting. I don't expect anybody to be a statistician, so I put a couple of things here on the screen. The first thing is I want everybody to know, if you didn't take statistics, that usually most of the population are within plus minus 2 standard deviations of the average, and you cover about 95% of the population. That's one thing. And the other thing is R square, which tells you how good is my forecast or how good is my data. If you want, you can look it up on Google what it means, but I'll be mentioning it a couple of times. I'll be covering some of the very simple things like moving average, more complicated exponential regression, and then the rest of it is going to be regressions, and how to apply it. So the first thing, I'm going to go to the sheet called moving average. And basically a moving average, by the way, it's been used a lot recently with the pandemic. They always talk about the last 7 days of data, and they take the average. So basically they're smoothing the data. If you see here, I have 3. Let me just try and move a few things here. I just have the data. I don't remember where I got the data from, but basically this says that this is the average of the last 3 weeks. This is a moving average of 3 weeks, and then it's going to take the data from the last 3 weeks, and you see that it's very similar to what we have originally. It's a little bit smoothed out. So this is a 3-period moving average. I also have a 4 and a 7 that most people are using today for the pandemic. So just to show you how I do it, I just take the average, the last 4 periods, and the rest of it is easy. If you want to forecast with it, unfortunately, you can just go ahead only 1 additional period. So you can't go 2 months ahead or 3 months ahead, only if you want to use it as forecasting. And the last example I have is going to be a 7-week or 7 months or 7 years moving average. I'm going to do the same thing. Pretty simple. If anybody has any questions, you can ask, otherwise I'll continue. Any questions about the moving average? No. Okay. Let's move to the next sheet called exponential smoothing. Exponential smoothing is another way of trying to forecast. And then in addition to the forecast itself, you have a decision variable called alpha. And if you look at the formula, I will explain and show you how it's done. For the very first period, you just assume that the forecast is equal to last month or week's data. So if I want to forecast month or week 2, I'm going to say equal, you see the formula that I have, to this. Okay? And now for the following periods, I'm using the formula. I'm giving alpha times the original data plus 1 minus alpha, together it should be 1, times the forecast. So in this case, I just used an alpha of 0.5 and I named it alpha. And I can say equal to, according to the formula, alpha times the data of last month plus 1 minus alpha times the forecast, the last forecast. And you notice I have the formula showing up. And if you double click or continue, you're going to see what happened to my forecast. Now, alpha is a decision variable, and you want to know how smooth you want it to be. If you try 0.1, it could be between 0 and 1. 0.1, look what happens. It's completely smooth. If you try a very high value, it mimics the original. And the idea usually is to find that alpha that minimizes the distance from all the points to the forecast. And if you want, you can send me an email, isaacgottlieb@gmail, and I'll explain to you why and how it's done. But basically now, I'm just showing you how to forecast and how to use it. Most of the stuff, or all the stuff I'm doing, is very simple. You just have to know the idea and where to click. And I'll show you that our friends at Microsoft, when they developed the new concept of forecasting, they're using exponential smoothing. Any questions?
There is, I think, and there was actually one question with the previous example, Isaac.
Yeah, exactly. Under the chart, I think.
This one?
Yeah, so it was, why is the average of the first 3 weeks entered next to the fourth wheel?
Because it assumes that it's next. In other words, I'm forecasting week 4 based on the last 3 weeks. And I'm forecasting week 5 based on the last 3 weeks. And I'm forecasting week 13 based on the last 3 weeks. It's always the previous 3 weeks. Here, I'm forecasting week 8 based on the last 7 weeks. Okay? So if I was a production manager somewhere and I wanted to know what should I plan for next week based on the last 7 weeks, this is how I forecast. Okay?
John, does this answer your question? And I think Steve had a similar question as well.
Okay, let's continue. You can always ask me at the end.
Cool.
Okay. I am going to go to regression, and regression is something that I'll be using for the rest of the session. Everything else is based on regression. I have some data here, and the data is something that I created myself. I just put some data. I wanted it to be almost on a straight line, so that's my data. What I did, I just clicked anywhere here, and I said insert, and I used my I have to move something here. Of Zoom is not allowing me to do something here. I'm using this chart, and I'm getting the chart, and this is how I'm using it. I just wanted to know everybody to know how I start. And what I want to know is what is the relationship between X and Y? The way I'm going to do it is right-click on any of these red dots and say add trend line. And here on the right, I have to move some stuff of the Zoom. I'm going to ask for the last 2 things. The last 2 things, one is the equation of the straight line, and the other one is how good is my forecast. Okay, so the equation of the line, let me try and increase the size. says that y equals, going back to first year of high school, minus 4.34 plus 4.8727x. Basically, it says every additional month, our sales are going up on the average about 4.87 units or dollars, whatever it is. How good is my forecast? It doesn't get to be any better because R square of 0.9945, which is close to 1, is excellent. Okay, and if I want to forecast next month's forecast, if I had to do it with a calculator, I would say it's equal to minus 4.3455 plus 4.87 times 13. And I can use Excel to calculate all these things. For example, the slope is equal to 4.87. I can calculate the slope just to show you, and usually I don't do it, but and it asks me, what are all these known y's? I named it sales. And what are the all the x's? I named it month. Okay, and hopefully I'm going to get the same 4.827 and so on and so forth. I could calculate the intercept the same way. It's going to do the same thing, and I can calculate R square, and it's going to do the same thing. Okay. Have I ever done it in real life? No. There are much easier things of doing things, but I just wanted to show you that we have the intercept that does the same thing, and R square and so forth. Now, if I had this data and I didn't want to do it with a chart, and I wanted to use Excel to forecast the next 3-4 months, based on the data above, I can use a function called forecast. And in a minute, I'll explain to you why I left this area blank. You'll be kind of surprised. So I'm going to forecast month 13. I'm going to say equal forecast. And of course, you can use a menu. I'm going to use the plain vanilla forecast. It's going to say, what month are you forecasting for? 13. What are the known y's? We called it month. What are the known x's? X is the independent variable. I'll mention it again. Is my, oh, I made a mistake. I think that y is equal to sales. And then what are the y's? It's month. Okay. And if I forecast month 13, 14, 15, 16, this is what I get. Now, why did I leave this area empty? Because all of you are familiar with autofill of Excel, right? If you say 3, 6, and you drag it down, it's going to say, of course, everybody knows, 9, 12, and so on and so forth. I had a discussion with some of the Excel people, and I asked them, what are they using? And they said, we're using linear regression. I said, oh, let me try. Select all these values. These are sequential values. And let's try the linear regression. And I was surprised to find out that I don't have to do anything to forecast, just to use the autofill. And you don't have to do anything just to understand that it works the same way. So that's one thing that surprised me. And if you have to do anything, any kind of regression, linear regression, just do what I just did, and you don't have to go through anything else. Any questions? Okay, that was something that amazed me. Anyhow, so now I have some other data on the sheet called household regression. Let's say that I have data from 1,000 customers, and I want to know if I can forecast, for example, how much would one spend as a function of the amount of money they make. And I'll do the same thing, just to repeat what we did before. I'm going to insert and use, it's not on a straight line, but I see that it's positively correlated. So what's the relationship between household income and purchases? Right click, add trend line, and as usual, ask for the last two things here. And what did I find out? That R square is equal to 0.72. Can I really forecast with it? Not for sure, but it's pretty good. And the equation of the straight line is equal to 3.541 plus 0.0048 times the income, and then I can forecast how much money would a person spend with us. Okay, and I can do more sophisticated things, but just to begin with, this is a tool for forecasting. Okay, and if you already see me doing these things, I say, let me show you a couple of things using the chart. So I found some data about supply and demand. And instead of going through a painful process of finding out what is the demand curve function and what is the supply function, you can just right click and say, add trend line. R square is going to be 1 because it's a straight line. Okay. And this is the equation of my, okay, supply curve. It's equal to minus 50 plus 0.19x. I don't know why they reversed the order, but if you were doing it in school, you would probably use minus 560 plus 0.19x. And then you can also do the demand curve, and then I'll show you how I complicate it in a second. A trend line, R square is going to be equal to 1. And this is the equation of my demand curve. Let me move it away. Okay. And what if the curve is not a straight line? Then I have a couple of examples here of data that the demand and supply curves are not a straight line. So what would you do? You would just right click, add trend line, and then see what happens here. R square is pretty high, but if you want to look for different options, you can see maybe if you click on exponential, no. Logarithmic, still no. And then you can play with the different options. Here is an R square that is equal to 1. And maybe this one is a much better one. So you see R square is equal to 1. I found an exact match where it says that the curve is equal to 60x squared. And you can use it pretty often because otherwise doing it manually is very painful. So let me show you also the other curve, and then we'll move to something more meaningful. Right click, add trend line, and find which one is the best. Okay, the reason I repeat everything is because this way people don't send me too many emails following the class. Okay. This is something that Microsoft has developed in 2000, I think they started in Office 2016. And this is data that I have, and I know how to do it manually. I showed it to you. If I had to forecast, I would find the trend line, and I can pull it down and show you that it's going to create and continue a straight line. I don't want to do it. What I want to show you is how the Microsoft feature works. So if you go to data, most people don't even know that you have the forecast sheet. And this is basically using exponential smoothing. So if you click on it, it tries to show you how the data would behave in the future, what would the forecast be. And you can click here on the options and see all kinds of things. For example, you can make it detect seasonality or not. And you know, they also use the 95% confidence interval. You'll see that if I reduce it, the tolerance of the output is going to be much lower. Most people use 95%, but if you want to be right 68% of the time, this is plus minus 1 standard deviation. And if you like the forecast, you just click create. and it does everything for you. I'm just telling you that if you click here, you'll discover that they use the exponential smoothing. If you want, I'll send you an email on how it's done, but basically you can go on YouTube. Many people explain what, and for some other reason, I found that most people don't even know that this button exists. And it's a very simple feature to apply, and I tried it in the past, and it works just as well as the very complicated things that I'll show you later. Okay, okay, so let me continue to the sheet called temperature. And I have a bunch of cities, and what I want to know is whether if I look at a certain city and find out what the latitude is, can I forecast what the temperature, the average temperature in January would be? And that is going to start us with this multi-regression of forecasting. So if you look, I tried these things. For example, this, meaning latitude, it's pretty understood that the further north you are, the lower the temperature is going to be. If you're going to right-click and add a trend line, you'll discover that I can somehow forecast, but the R-square is not going to be that good. So R-square is only 0.79. And basically it says every degree you go up north, your temperature is going to be on the average 2.1 degrees Fahrenheit less. And I don't want to go through the whole thing. I just want to show you what you would do if you have other information. So other than the latitude, you also have longitude. Does it make a difference going west or east? Probably not. You see, I'm going to show you that the correlation is going to be close to 0. And the same thing, I think that the higher the elevation, it will help. But again, the R-square is going to be terrible. So this is the first time I'm going to show you how, instead of using one variable, I'm going to use 3 variables and show you that R-square is going to improve. This R-square is 0.719. And I'm going to do it in one click. And I'm going to just show you that I'm doing it with the Data-Analysis ToolPak. What I'm trying to forecast is what would be the average temperature in January based on longitude, latitude, and elevation. Okay? And basically, as I told you, everything I'm doing is very simple. You just have to know where to click. If you go to the Data-Analysis ToolPak, I'm not sure if everybody knows where to find it. So in case you don't have it, just to mention, you can go to File, Options, Add-ins. And mine is already activated. It's up here. If you don't have it activated, it's going to be down here. And what you're going to say is click on Go, choose the Analysis ToolPak, say OK, and it's going to be here. The Analysis ToolPak, I usually say in the classroom, is a great tool for lazy people like me. It does a lot of stuff very fast. If you click here and you go to regression, it's going to ask you, what are you trying to forecast? I am trying to forecast the temperature in January, so I'm going to select that range of all the, and I made a mistake. Let me click here again. Control-Shift-Arrow down. And what are you trying to forecast with? I'm trying to forecast these 3 values: the longitude, the latitude, and elevation. And I'm going to say that I have labels here in the headers. Otherwise, it's going to give you an error. And I'm also asking for residuals. I'll explain what it does. And when I'm going to say OK, it's going to give me the tool to forecast the average temperature of a city based on the 3 items. And when you say OK, I made a mistake somewhere. Hold on. E1 to E7. Let me try again. And here is what's going on. First of all, look at my R square. It's not 0.7, it's 0.83. Also, what do I know? I know, as I told you, that I have a standard error. So the standard error is about 5.6. So I know that 95% of the time I'm going to be wherever my forecast is, plus minus 11. Is it good? I don't think so, but this is the way to do things. And maybe I can find another variable to improve my R square and decrease my standard error. Anyhow, what is the equation of the straight line that is going to forecast my temperature? It's going to be the intercept, 0.85 plus 0.27 times the longitude minus 2.06 times the latitude minus 0.00307 times the height in feet, or the elevation in feet of this location. And then if I use this forecast, this equation, if I had to go back to all these cities, it would do the following forecast. The first one would be 13.818, and I'm going to be off by 1.17. Let me go back to the sheet and show you. This is for the first city is 13.18. Originally, it was 12. So I was off by minus 1.13. And then it shows me all of these tolerances or residuals. Okay, so once you understand how it works, now we can go to a case study. I had a student in Singapore that had a list of 1,000 apartments. I changed it all to square feet. And what we wanted to know is how can we forecast or find out what would be the price of the apartment based on the number of variables. So we had a discussion in the class, and we wanted information about the size of the apartment, the number of bathrooms, locations. Is it a corner apartment? Location meaning, is it in the middle of the city or in the suburbs? Does it have a balcony? And I have a few other things that I mentioned here that really didn't work out. We tried all these variables, and the only ones that really worked out are these, and that's what I'm going to use in this presentation. So going to the very first variable and try to find out what would be the price of the apartment based on the size. And this is what the same way I did before, ask, right click at trend line. And as you see, R square is terrible. But basically it says that every additional square foot adds to the price of the apartment about $450. It's all in thousands of dollars. So we said, okay, let me try and do this with regression. So we said, okay, let's add one variable. Of course, you can add all of them together. Can we forecast the price of the apartment based on the size and the number of bathrooms? So I'll do the same thing I did before. So I'm going to go to data, data analysis, regression. Okay, what are you trying to forecast? You're trying to forecast the price. So you're going to select these Y's. Control Shift arrow down. And what are you trying to forecast with? Apartment size and the number of bathrooms. The rest of the stuff is here, labels, and I'm going to also find out how much off I am. And remember, our R square was 0.42, I think. What happens if we use the regression? Again, I made a mistake somewhere as usual. Hold on. And R square has improved tremendously. A standard error is still at $21,000. That means that 95% of the time I'll be off by plus minus 2 standard errors, which is $40,000. And if I had to forecast the price of an apartment based on the apartment size and bathroom, it's going to be minus 64,000 plus 0.454 times apartment size, and for each bathroom, you're going to add $60,000. If it's one bathroom, it's going to be 60. If it's two bathrooms, it's going to add 120. And how good are we doing? How well are we doing? Here it is. We were off 12,000, 18,000, minus 9,000, plus 20,000, and so on. So the question is, what else do you know that can improve the price of the apartment? So let me add also location. Is it in the city or is it out of the city? So I am going to add the variable. Of course, I cannot use a yes and a no in the forecast. So what I'm going to do is click here, do Control H. Every time you see the word yes, give it a 0. Every time, replace all. Every time you see a no, give it a, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Let me undo. Every time you see the word yes, you want to give it a 1, even though I'll give it a 0 and a 1, it's going to work, but it's more intuitive that it's a 1. Replace all. And then every time you see a no, give me a 0. And replace all. And we are ready to go. So basically, I'm going to add a variable. It's very simple. You just go to data, data analysis, regression. Now you don't have to select everything. You're forecasting everything in column A. The only thing is you have to add column D here. So now I have 3 independent variables and 1 dependent. Dependent is the one I'm trying to forecast the price. And when you say OK, R square is much better. Now we are up to 0.936. And my standard error is 12. That means 95% of the time I'm going to be plus minus 24,000. If you look at the residuals, it improved. And we have 2 more variables, I think. Let me also say corner. A corner apartment, I think, added to the price of the apartment. I'm just going to do it again. And now I can change 2 at the same time. Control H. Every time you see a no, make it a 0. Replace all. And every time you see a yes, make it into a 1. Replace all. And run the regression. The only thing I have to do is add column E here. And I'm going to mention a couple of other things. So let me just say, OK. I've done it a couple of times. I know that R square is very, very good. And the standard error is also very, very good. One thing, nobody's a statistician here. You have to make sure that P0 of the variables should be less than 5%. OK, all of them here are less than 5%. So you don't have to worry about it. But if it's more than 5%, I can explain, and this is not a class in statistics, why you shouldn't be using it. So let me go to the very last variable we're going to add. I think we have to add a balcony. So we are going to forecast the price of the apartment based on apartment size, number of bathrooms, is it in the city or out of the city? Does it have a corner? Is it a corner apartment or does it have a balcony? We tried some of the other variables like is it next to a subway or not? And it didn't work because P0 was off. So let's just do the last example. I'm going to do Control H, replace all. And all the 0, replace all. That's the last time I'm doing it. And now I have my last example. I can do my data regression. And I'm going to add 1 more column. Now I have all my variables, including F. And when I say OK, voila. R square is almost 99%. If I forecast using this data, 95% of the time I'll be off by plus minus $10,000. And if you want to know the equation that is going to forecast that price of the apartment, it's going to be minus 129,000.12 plus 0.46 times apartment size, plus add $66 for each, $66,000 for each bathroom. City adds $38,000, corner adds $20,000, and the balcony $11,000. How much off am I? You can check it out. And what I want to do is I just summarized it all here. So this is the equation that is going to allow you to forecast. And what I did is I just took the first apartment and I said, okay, if I have the first apartment, it was 1,423 square feet. It had one bathroom. It was in the city. It wasn't a corner apartment. It had a balcony. And if you use the forecast, it was $658,000. And the actual one was 652, so I was off by $2,560. So basically, you can try this kind of forecasting technique on almost anything. I can tell you that I was talking to some people who work for Volkswagen, and they were trying to forecast sales for a certain year, and they have all kinds of variables, population size, GNP, and so on and so forth, and they get the same thing. And I have a couple of links down here to similar things that I'm doing. If you have any questions, you can ask me an email. And now you can ask me questions, as many questions as you want. I don't hear you.
Hey, Isaac.
Yeah.
All right, any questions, guys?
It's either one of two things. Either people understood everything or they were all overwhelmed. And I think it's they understood it because I tried to repeat everything 10 times. Any questions?
Just keep my eye on the chat. Feel free to speak, guys, if there's anything you want to say. Right, Fred.
Yes, hi. Thanks a lot for this presentation of forecasting. Just a question, I cannot click on the link you present, so I would like to know if you can share them on the chat.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay,
that's the first question. Second one, I have worked with the tools, Addin, the Data-Analysis long time ago, but the demo you have done about regression is really impressive. Is there a documentation about this tool somewhere?
Send me an email and I'll send you some explanation. By the way, most of the professional statisticians are doing the same thing I'm doing using SPSS, but SPSS is very difficult for people who are not statisticians. And that's why I used to teach an executive MBA class for about 15 years. And if you show how to do it with this tool, it's much, much, much easier.
Because the main problem I know, on my blog, I receive a lot of information. It's true that people are not statisticians like you, and people just click on a lot of different tools in Excel, like forecasting. I have received a comment on a video about standard deviation, and it's true that people don't really understand how to use each component of the statistics, like median, moving average, and so on. So,
I think it's funny. I teach a class in statistics for executives who have no background, quantitative background, and some of the questions they have are amazing. Like, why do you need a standard deviation?
Yeah, but
so I tell them, if my head is in the oven, my feet in the freezer, on the average, I feel okay. So then they know that they need the standard deviation. But yeah.
That's a point. Yes, let's chat together. Maybe we can have a meeting together.
One of the links I have here is a small little workshop that explains how to use all the features of the analysis toolpak.
Okay, great.
There are about 20 different features there, yes.
Alan and Tia, they have my personal email, so they can share it with you. So like that, we can discuss later.
You can always send me an email and ask me questions, no problem.
Yeah, sure.
And this workbook is in the chat thread.
Okay.
So if you download the workbook, you'll have the links in it.
Any other questions?
Just looking on YouTube, guys.
I think there are a couple in the chat. Isaac, I'm not sure if you can see them.
It's difficult to see all of them. I'm trying.
So there's one from Steve. Does the ToolPak include the facility to run out a control chart also? And how does the method deal with recognizing special cause variations?
So the question was how to do a control chart. So I think what the person is asking me. Basically, if you have a lot of data, you can always get the average of the data and plot it plus minus 3 standard deviations and plot it. And then you can see whether it's out of control. If anybody wants, they can send me an email and I'll send them a picture or an Excel spreadsheet on how to use statistical control charts in Excel. I have it available somewhere. I think that's the question. Maybe one of these days we should run a longer workshop on how to use Excel for statistics. Okay. Any other questions?
The last one that I saw was, is it correct that the variables can be put into slicers?
I didn't think about it, but probably yes. You know what? You can do other things. If we have a minute, I'll show you. Maybe slicer not, but let me just go back to the regression. Not the regression, the exponential smoothing. Sometimes if you want to explain to an executive or to your audience or to your students whether what you're doing is right, so you can do the following thing. You can go to the developer and add here a scroll bar. The scroll bar was used basically for forms, but I use it for some strange things. So you can right click and just get the form. I'll show you what I can do. I'll just link it to an empty space here. And then the scroll bar allows you to go from 0 to 100, right? So you can take this value and say equal this divided by 100. And then when you use the scroll bar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's quite cool.
Okay, I use it usually in operations management when you try to find out where's the best location to place a plant. Or I had a consulting job for the hospital and they wanted to know where to place their kitchen so as to minimize the distance to all their sick people, to minimize, and you use a scroll bar and show, okay, you want to move this to this location, this is what happens. So you can use a scroll bar for decision. I think the person who asked me about the slicer, they wanted to know if I can eliminate or change data, and I'm not sure if this is the answer.
They said, great, thank you. So,
okay. But this is a good tool to know how to use, by the way.
Thank you, Isaac.
Okay.
Okay. Where do you teach, Isaac? Do you still teach?
What do I teach?
Where do you teach?
I used to teach at Columbia University and NYU for the last 20 years, the Excel workshop for all the MBA students. I had a full-time job at Rutgers for 10 years, Rutgers University and Temple University, teaching operations management and statistics. I managed an executive MBA for about 4 years of Rutgers University in Beijing, Shanghai, and Singapore. So I learned a lot of stuff from the students because you get hundreds of executives and they come with crazy case studies, and you end up with all the students working on very interesting case studies. So that example with the apartments was one of the students. And if you go on YouTube and look for a logistics example, you'll see something interesting about the plant location in China and so on and so forth.
Cool. Okay. If there's any more questions, I'm sure you can put it in the chat, or obviously Isaac shared his contact details in this workbook. We do have Dick to present those. So Isaac, do you mind just stopping your share for a moment?
Sorry.
Yeah, okay, it's no problem. And Dick, are you ready, buddy?
Yes, I'm ready.
Super. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Introduce myself.
Yes.
I'm Dick Moffat. There you go. Can you guys see me here?
Yep.
We can see you.
Good. Hey, it's nice to be back in London, which is my favorite city in the whole world. I've been there so many times. Too bad that we can't all go for a pint after, though. That's the problem. But anyway.
One day.
And thanks for that, Isaac. Isaac, I guess you pronounce it. Reminds me of the first time I did linear regression stats on wheat protein in Western Canada as a student on a PDP-8 using ticker tape terminal. And I hate to admit it, but that was 47 years ago. Ouch. But I am, nonetheless, a long-time Excel developer. I started using VisiCalc. And then when Lotus 3 came along, I jumped out on that and then went into Windows 3 in the early 90s after becoming a world's expert on 1, 2, 3. And I began using Excel using V4 with the old XLM macro language, pre-VBA. And of course, I've stayed with Excel ever since, as well as a lot of work with Access and SQL Server, and now Power BI, of course. Most of my work involves reliable Excel solutions. They got to be reliable because I can't have them calling me every time something goes wrong. They have to be reliable. That's my policy. And these companies rely on those every day or every month end or every year end, as long as they want to keep using it. And in many cases, these things have worked for decades with these clients. This reliability will be more necessary in the future if Excel is to become part of the new business information, business intelligence world we're entering. And you know, that's not a given yet, actually. I ask myself, though, all the time, why do all you folks make spreadsheets anyway? Why are people doing all these spreadsheets in businesses? Obviously, somebody's paying them to do it for a reason. And I assume it's to summarize your organization's data, to make that info available to the powers that be in your company, or for accounting and finance, sales and marketing, and so on and so on. You do your models, and then you distribute the results. Decades of using Excel has led to corporations relying on them every day, everywhere. And this is a good thing, not a bad thing. Not a bad thing. This is a good thing. But regardless, I have always found a problem with distribution of these Excel results. This is not a new problem. This is a perpetual problem. And this is going to be more important going forward for a whole lot of reasons I could spend a whole presentation on. Now, apparently Microsoft saw this issue. And when they realized that they had to come up with some kind of a dashboard or reporting mechanism, they built Power View into Excel. So when they built Power View into Excel, you could integrate it with your Excel data and you end up with your nice little dashboard. And it was a V1, and if it had stayed there, it probably would have evolved into something quite interesting. But it never did, because Microsoft changed their mind and moved all that tech to a standalone product called Power BI instead, as you probably all know. Now, Power BI was Microsoft's attempt to provide a broader cloud-based product that embraced all kinds of data sources, including, theoretically, Excel. Okay, so I decided when that happened that I'd better work hard at learning Power BI. And despite my long experience as a database developer that allowed me to use the incredible sources available to Power BI, I could not get over the fact that Power BI is also still the natural extension of Excel. But frankly, the native mechanisms Microsoft built in Excel for pushing data to Power BI and in Power BI for pulling Excel data, they are not strong, in my opinion. And there is no evidence that they will be changing this fact for reasons that I don't have time again to detail here. But we'd be glad to show anyone what I'm talking about if they reach out to me to discuss it. Frankly, Excel is low on the radar in the Power BI world. It's not cool, man. So where does that leave Excel? Do we all drop using Excel and do all of our analysis in Power BI? Not bloody likely. I've heard a lot of BS out there that Power BI replaces Excel. Not gonna happen. This is a wet dream of Power BI bigots. I know that's an interesting phrase, but it's supposed to be funny. People who have bet their careers on Power BI as a cure for cancer and to bring peace to the Middle East. They have a vested interest in killing Excel, like all those who have tried for so many years, as we who've been around for a long time know, but they haven't been able to do it. Now, I believe that Excel should be the principal supplier of content to Power BI. In my books, why not? It's probably not true, but how about a principal supplier of content to Power BI? So I came to the conclusion that the logical approach is to use Excel to summarize your data and sanitize it for security reasons, which is the big thing that we'll talk about. Then push those summaries to Power BI. We would use Excel as a calculation engine and then publish just the results you want to Power BI. Then we would build a UI of reports and dashboards in Power BI and distribute them from there. At the same time, this process would bring discipline to your models, something that we all need now, and consistency across your models in ways that are necessary if you want to contribute to content, to products like Power BI and Tableau and ClickView, etc., etc. So I came up with the idea of an Excel add-in that you pick the data you want to publish and only that data, and then publish it to the cloud right then and there. Now, I joined forces with my great friend, the great David Hoppe in Holland, and he became our principal developer. He's the guy who crunched the code. We became business partners, and we set off to build XLPublish together. Like the long process of talking a little, coding a little, testing a little, then talking a little, coding a little, testing a little. And we repeated that process on and on for several years now, and we have come up with a tight little piece of software that we think is just what's needed. No more, but definitely no less. So thanks to all the exciting new features in Excel like Power Query and Power Pivot with DAX measures and all dynamic arrays and Lambda functions, you can now continue to build your BAS Excel models. What's a BAS Excel model? It's a big ass spreadsheet. Then by using Excel with XLPublish, you can do everything you can do in Power BI when it comes to data management and data prep in Excel. Plus, plus, plus. Now, as a side hustle, we also built an Excel-only reporting tool for use inside XLPublish, which you'll see today, for those that want to keep everything in Excel behind the firewall. So, let's see what produced. Let's see what we've got here. Let's go and share our desktop and start showing you some stuff. All right, I know everybody comes here to see demos, but I had to do that. What that was background, right? And I had to explain the background of XLPublish because I've just shown it to quite a few people. And unfortunately, a lot of them don't get it. They don't understand why. So I wanted to take that few 5 minutes talking about the why behind XLPublish. What is XLPublish? Well, XLPublish is a tool that sits as an add-in in Excel, and it adds functionality to your Excel experience by taking the data in your spreadsheets, like our little friend here, and pushing it to Power BI. Now, you've already got things in Power BI, like, for example, a table. To publish it to Power BI is actually quite a bit of work. It's a lot of messing around to push it from Excel to Power BI. So what I see here now is we have a world where there's Excel here and Power BI, and there's sort of they're close to touching. But what we've done is added XLPublish, how do you like that? To link between the two products. Now you'll notice that it's sitting on top of both products. If you have an Excel file and you want to use XLPublish with it, it doesn't change that file in any way, shape, or form. It does. It stores a bunch of weirdly named names hidden inside the file, which is used next time you open the file to determine what you have decided to do with XLPublish in it. But in terms of changing your file, it doesn't change anything. And one of the big strengths is you can use it with all your old files. Now, what I do then is I take an Excel file, I process it with XLPublish, the data goes to Power BI, and the result shows up in a dashboard. Now, this is the entire XLPublish world. It's the same thing. Here's Excel, and here's Power BI. But with XLPublish, you can also create what I mentioned earlier, XLPublish reports, which create reports in Excel that you can distribute exactly the same way as you could distribute them in Power BI. But it also includes other dashboarding tools. Let me move this out of the way. So our product can get along with ClickView, with Tableau, and with any other dashboarding product. And it does it by providing a connection between Excel and all of them. And you'll notice here, this circle goes under Excel reports, but Excel reports go over all of these others as well as this. Now, you can create an Excel report, as you'll see, and it can be a source for Power BI. It could be a source for Tableau, etc. But the idea at the core of this is to summarize your data in Excel. Use Excel as your engine the way you've always used it. Use your fundamental spreadsheet skills. Use your Power Query. Use your data model with the Power Pivot and the DAX measures and the relationships and the pivot tables that I love so much. And all the different things inside Excel. Use them the way you've always have. In fact, use your existing models, no problem. You add XLPublish on the top, and it will give you access to this world very easily. And I'll show you right now. When you have a source file, here is a source file, any Excel file. So we call it the source file, obviously. When you click on XLPublish, it sends the data that you selected from the source file to the target file, which is a purpose-built file that we create, which can either hang around right by the original file, which we automatically create, named after that original file, or you could publish it to a shared folder or to SharePoint or OneDrive, and you could then, for example, make it an auditable file that somebody can go look at. Once you publish it to the target file, which consists of tables of data that you've selected. So if you just selected a table, that data is in the target file. If you selected a pivot table, we will deconstruct that pivot table and turn all that data into a relational table. Not the source data, but the results. We will also allow you to take data, dynamic array data, and publish that as well as other. We have 9 different types of information you can extract from an Excel file. Now, once you're in the target file, if you chose to do this when you publish, it will push that right through to the Power BI server. Okay, so it goes right into the server, which is, of course, an Azure server that Microsoft maintains. And remember, we're publishing only, hopefully, only the summaries. Now, I'm not telling you how to run your business. You can use this to publish details. I don't care. But the idea is mostly to publish summaries, because then your data sets are smaller, your performance is better, and it's better to be used for analysis, which is what Power BI is intended for, analysis. It's not a query tool. Now, it can be used as a query tool. I'm not telling you how to run your business, but it's fundamentally meant to be used for analysis. When I put it into the data set, I can create Power BI dashboards and reports from this data. And it also makes the data available to the Excel report files. Now, once you change the data, say every day, every month, every week, or at the end of a year, you will then republish this data. And it will run through this whole process all over again. It'll run from the source file to the target file, and then it'll push through the Power BI data set, and then it'll be made available. Your refreshed data will automatically flow again. So every time you hit refresh, it will update all the data in all the places within a relative very short time. So let's dive right in. What we're going to look at first is an Excel file that is an example of why XLPublish exists. And second of all, here is the result of that file, which is kind of cool, I think. If you go back, this is your spreadsheet, and it produces this Power BI, very simple in this case, Power BI dashboard. Now let's go over and see what we got here. I'm looking at a file here. Can everybody see this? Speak up. Somebody?
Yeah,
yes, we can see
it.
But there is any point that we can upload.
That's the problem with this. It's like I'm talking to nobody. But anyway, okay, everybody go back quiet again. Okay, anyway, what I've got here is an Excel file. And it is a classic little HR Excel file. It's not totally realistic, but it's pretty close to realistic. This is the kind of thing you would have, which lists your employees, and it gets refreshed every month because you want to see a report on your salaries, your employees by their department, right? By their age range, right? And you have their names and you have their ages and their department. Now what I've done is I've mixed this, so I have the department in Excel by using an XLOOKUP to look up the department's name in this table, because that's not in the original data that this is usually connected to. For whatever reason, it's only department 3 in the original data. So let's look at something here. I'm bringing in data from an external source, and I'm adding value to it in Excel. Who hasn't done that? Okay. I mean, this is one of the big strengths of Excel. So you could reorganize your whole business, for example, in an Excel table and then produce a result. Now, the other thing I've done is I've got the age ranges here in a table as well. So I'm saying who is in this age range and who is in that age range. And here's our people. Who we got here? We got Dewey Rose. We got Ivan Oder. Okay, we have Mardi Gras. We have Cherry Pitts. And we have Chuck Roast, Clairvoyant. I love these names. I use all these names to sanitize data. And this already was from a demo table anyway at one time. And it shows their age, etc. Now, how would I publish this to Power BI? Well, this thing gets in the way here. When I go to XLPublish tab, if you've got Excel, the Excel tab in the ribbon, this is our own custom tab. And it includes, very simply, all the things that you can do. And I'm going to do one right now. I'm going to tag this item. I'm going to call this table data. I can change the name, or it will use the data that's related to it from the sheet that it's on. Now, if I were to publish this right now, it would be great. And what's happening is I have it now selected as what we call a tagged object. We have another tagged object in here, which we're going to look at right now. And there's a big difference between these two objects. You can, of course, publish this data to Power BI, and then you can aggregate it in Power BI and add, then you can summarize it in a matrix or a chart using age, range, and department. But the reality is, I don't want to publish the detailed data. There's a little thing called, what is it, GDPR over there, although I'm not sure if GDPR applies to you guys anymore in England. But you, I'm sure, will have something equivalent. Just the idea that if you've got other people's information, you shouldn't be passing it around, right? And you definitely shouldn't be publishing it to the internet. And this is a real concern. And it's actually a real concern if people are using Excel, because Excel files can end up in the wrong hands. And this is something we got to somehow break people of worrying about that. And that is a combination of discipline, best practices, and XLPublish, of course. But anyway, I don't want to publish this. What I really want to do is summarize my data. Remember what I said? I want this to be an analytical tool, not a query tool. Now, you could use it as a query tool if it's employees, because unless you got a million employees, it could conceivably fit up in the Power BI server. But for the real term, in this case, we just want it so that the manager can see by department, by age range, by sex, how many employees, what the total salaries are, and what the full-time equivalents are. This is a pivot table, as you can see on the right-hand side here. Now, what I'm going to do here is go to XLPublish and show you this. When I go into Manage Tags, I'm going to delete our friend for the data, and all I'm going to do is have a manage tag which for this. Now what I did was I clicked anywhere in the pivot table and I clicked tag data, and tag data popped up a dialog. I typed a name, I click OK, and now it ends up on this list as employee summary 1, and it's ready to be published. Now I have defined here on a set target that this will be put into a file which is called XLP HR Analysis Demo. So you see, I can call it whatever I want, but the default would have been HR Analysis XLP, but I changed it. In this case, I'm saving it to the same folder this file is in. So they travel together, as they say, right? Like I said, I could also publish to a shared folder on the network where other people publish also, and then that data would go to Power BI. This bottom here says, do I want to publish it to Power BI? You can do this and not publish to Power BI, because that data that we're going to create is really useful in a lot of circumstances, as I'll show you. And the funny thing is, I can actually choose any from a list of my used workspaces. And the other cool thing is, if I type comma and another workspace and comma and another workspace, it will publish this data set that I'm going to publish to those 3 workspaces at the same time. So they will all be in sync. Now I know Power BI has ways of doing that now, but this is an understandable way to handle it, so that all 3 of those workspaces would have this set of files that are exactly the same date and time, same version of the truth. Now, all I have to do is hit publish. And it says, okay, I'm going to publish this, and I'm going to publish it to my workspace. So when I go publish, it says preparing for publish. Now, we did as much as possible to stop flashing in this, but there was one change in Microsoft related to screen refreshing that they made a couple of years ago, that made it so that certain things can't be frozen. It will show you them, but 99% of the time, it'll just be nice and quiet. And now it's completed. Now, what it has done, it has filled a target file. And if I'm on the XLPublish, I can open the target file and hit. This is that file that travels along with the source file. which is your original spreadsheet. In it, it says this was updated at 2:16 on today, which is today, right? Canadian time. It's created by me. This was the source, and this is the target file. In fact, this is the file that you're looking at right now. There is a log that keeps track of every time you publish and whether it was successful or not, which means 99.9% of the time this is true. And then here is your data. Now it's interesting. This data was in this pivot table. And you notice how this pivot table is indented and it has indents on the age range. We don't care about that. What we do is we take this data and we, let me go back here. Where are you? Right there. We break it down and turn it back into a relational table. So we basically create an unformatted pivot table up in memory to slice and dice this data in the pivot table back to a proper format for a relational table, which can be consumed by Power BI, for example. And so the point is, this is the results of the pivot table, not the source data in the data model. Now this data is here, but it's also up here. I'm in the target file. It's also up here in the Power Pivot, in the data model. And what's interesting in the data model, we have automatically created a measure for the salary. And I have added a value for average in here. And these values travel with this data to Power BI, because when we publish from here, we publish the data model from this file, not the source data, not the data in the worksheet, right? We publish from the data model. Now that gives us lots of things that I don't have time to go into. That'll be an advanced class. But this data here, for example, Dan, is in the spreadsheets exactly the same, and it is available to something like Tableau, for example. And so that is the XLP file. Now the interesting thing about the target file is when we refresh, if I go refresh again, it doesn't replace that file. It just looks and says, oh, there's already a table in there by this name. Let's replace the data with this new set of data. If you've added fields, it'll say, oh, there's new fields. If you've renamed fields, oh, you've renamed fields. We've got the ability for you to change things in your Excel tagged objects if you wish, which is something that's not easy to do in and from Power BI. And so I'm publishing it again. It took 20 seconds last time, and it's taking it took another 26 seconds this time. Now, the secret to performance in the publish is to get a hot machine with lots of RAM and a fast network connection, something that I do not have. So, and then the other question I say is, well, okay, say it takes 45 seconds or 50 seconds. Do it by hand instead, please, and see how you like it. All right. Now, what is happening is, in this scenario, from current slide. We took this spreadsheet and we turned it into this model. Now, where is that model? Let's go back here. And there is the model. This is our Excel file, or pushed into Power BI, and it creates this obviously rudimentary Power BI report, but that's fine. It's designed to show you the idea. And you notice it was last refreshed at 11 a.m. Let's hit this button here, the refresh button. And now it shows that it was refreshed at 2:20 p.m. So if I were to change these values, you would see that. So if I go back here, and here's a good example. Poor Alice in Wonderland, she got fired. So her $276,000 of salary is gone. So she was 49-ish years old. So if we go data, refresh data, you will see that the total for people in the 40 to 49 range went down. Now I'm going to go to XLPublish. It's the end of the month. The only thing I did was I fired poor Allison. And what I'm doing, everybody else is the same. So I'm going to publish it again, take another 25 seconds. And what this is doing is it's refreshing my data in the target file, and then it's pushing that data to Power BI. And it's only the data that I selected and tagged in this case, and it says it's completed. Okay, so let's go back over here, and now let's see, it says 220. If I hit refresh, this will now change to 222, which is the time right now. And what you're doing is you're actually looking this on my Mac. This is my Mac. Ta-da! This is my Mac machine. Now I'm using virtual machines. This is a Mac base. This is a virtual machine on this Mac, and this is a virtual machine that's in Azure in the cloud. Allows me to switch back and forth pretty easily. So what has happened is this data, that is in behind this, is actually refreshed, and I'll show you that in a minute, the tables that it produces. Now let's go back here, and let's go to the next. Now in addition to what I just showed you, which was publishing from a pivot table, let's look at these objects that can be published using XLPublish. You can publish just an area of cells, just an area of cells that is not named, is not a table, is not a pivot, is not sexy in any way, shape, or form, but for some reason, that's where your data sits and you want to publish it. So you can publish data from just an area of cells, but you can also publish data from a range name. So if that set of cells is named, we will pick up that it's named X or range X, and we will use that. If you, of course, can publish data tables. We have a feature called continuous, where you can publish, it's basically incremental updates, but I'll show you when we get there. And consolidate, which allows you to have multiple contiguous sheets and consolidate them together into one data set. We also give you the ability to publish dynamic arrays, and I don't know who else can do that. And of course, pivot tables. And I'm going to show you a cool thing called a queued pivot table. And then I'm going to show you a feature called unpivot, which is mostly designed to give you compatibility with your old traditional Excel files. So where does this thing that I'm talking about reside? Let's have a look at this. Let's go back to Excel to here. This is my worksheet that has all these tables. It has cells, named ranges, data table, continuous, consolidate, pivot table, queue, dynamic, and unpivot. Each one of these sheets has an example of the type of data you're allowed to publish from any Excel file, anywhere in that Excel file. By the way, these happen to be on nice organized sheets just for demo purpose, but they can be embedded in any model you want. A table, for example. Now, in this case, this particular example is just got this value down in the bottom right hand corner. Now, when I said it doesn't change your model, it does in this case, but it shouldn't be an issue, and it's the only place it does it. It actually adds a formula down here because this isn't a range name or anything like that. And so this is an XLP function that references the upper left corner of the area. So what this is telling me, XLPublish, is that this range is the range that's covered by this selection. All I did was go tag on the Excel, and it tagged it, right? So now here it is. And if I go to Manage Tags, you will see that it's listed here as cells, and it is cell A4 to E24. Now, if we were to add to this table or insert rows or delete rows, even if this stays in the same place, that's no problem. Because what we do is, if you insert rows, you're obviously going to move everything down. You just got to be careful with that. If that's going to be an issue, what you can do is you can just drag this down and leave space. When we publish using XLPublish, we do not publish blank rows. So if you have a blank row in your record set, which is something traditional spreadsheeters often do, we just ignore it. We don't publish it because it's not data. Now, the second type of example here is called a named range. Now, this is a named range, and it is called sales by province. And what I've done is I have done the same thing. I tag this, and it says edit range name. So what we've done is we have sales by province, which is tied to the range, named range sales by prov. Think about that. If you insert rows and add data in the middle, no problem. There's no formula in the bottom right because it's tied to the range name. A range name expands or contracts, or if it gets new fields in it, we don't care. We will publish the contents of that range name. Data table, same game. A data table, which is actually my favorite part of Excel. Despite all the new stuff that's been added, I still love tables. They're just so useful. If you know the couple of little gotchas that you got to know about tables. But they're just so powerful. It's just amazing. So a table is just like a named range in a sense, in that this table is defined and tagged as table 1. By the way, do you notice here in this dialog box, as I click around, it shows me all my objects. And I can then, and it actually takes me to whichever one I chose. Now in this case, this table, which has, all the functions of tables, it will publish, when we publish, this data from this table. So if it grows, it contracts, if there's new fields added or fields names are changed, no problem, we will publish that as well. Now, wow, another table. This is the exact same table, but I've added something to it. I've added now. Now in this case is one way to say that this table is as of this point in time, right? Everybody knows hopefully what equals now means. What I have done though to this table is I have edited it. So here I am in the manage tags table or dialog. I go edit and I went continuous. Now, continuous 12 means that it's going to keep 12 versions of this data set. You got it? So if I say 24, it'll save 24 versions of it. If I publish a 25th time, it's going to drop the first one and keep 24. So it's going to keep the last 24 for as long as you want. So if it's finance data and you want this year against last year, you could set it to 24, or you could set it to 36, whatever you want. But the idea is you don't have to publish all the data since the company was founded in 1926, okay? You only really want the data that is current and going to be useful in your model. You know where this is also useful, and I've used this before, is for scenarios. If you're going to do a presentation to the board and you've got 8 choices to make, you can create each one of these scenarios and publish each one at a time, which is a little time consuming, but really simple. Just click a button, change it, click, click, click. Then you can have say for example, a slicer, and you can slice, but use a slicer to pick through the different scenarios in your presentation. Now, consolidate. I know I'm going fast on this, but what time is it? Oh, we're doing good. We're doing good. I'm almost done. This is an interesting trick. I personally didn't think of this, and I thought, David contributed a lot of things, and I contributed a lot of things. But this is one where he said, I think we should do this. And I said, nah, why? Well, he convinced me pretty well. The consolidate means is if you have sales, in this case is a bad example. I got different provinces. But the perfect example would be if I have data for Quebec in one table, and then I have data for Ontario in another table. This would be a better example. Next time you see it, I will fix that. Okay? I can merge these two together into one table. And so what I do in my definition of this table, I clicked on consolidate and I said it's going to be 2 worksheets. So if I, for example, and I tag this sheet on the first sheet and it says do a consolidate of 2 worksheets starting with this one. So I can, for example, have 30 if you want. So if you're bringing in data from different regions or different departments or whatever you want, you can use consolidate. Pivot table, of course, is what I showed you earlier. Pivot table, of course, you got to realize something. A pivot table, it doesn't matter the shape of it. You can have as many columns, fields, you can have as many subtotals as you want. We don't care. You can have as many pretty colors as you want. We don't care. It's going to take that pivot table result and convert it into a table, a relational table of the results, and it's going to publish them. And that's fantastic. For 99% of your pivot tables, that's going to be fantastic. But there is a specific type of pivot table that can cause you trouble. And this particular one is an example of that. I'm okay with additive columns, like additive fields like budget, total sales. If I want to see BC's total in a matrix, it's the total of all three of these, and that's what would show up. But average is a problem. Things like average and distinct count and anything that's fundamental, it's not additive or non-additive. The average for BC is not the average of these averages, it's the average of these sales. Because the average of those sales is different than the average of the averages because it's weighted depending on the size of the number in the sales. You all know that. So we created a feature, and again, one of David's brilliant suggestions, called a cube. And I think no, it was mostly David. And it's a cube. So what we do in a cube is we capture every single value in the pivot table at every level of the hierarchy. So we will capture all budget for BC. This number here basically will be there for BC. This number will be there for Ontario, this for Quebec. Let me go and show you. By the way, at any time you can jump to the target file by going open target file. And if I go to the field, this is the data for cube pivot table, which is our example we were just looking at. And you'll notice it has a total, all the totals by province, by category. And here's all the totals by category, and here's all the totals by province, and here's the grand total. Think about how sweet that is. You can have as many levels of hierarchy you want in order to come up with this result. But remember, the more data you have, the less useful your data is for analysis. You want to get it to a level of detail or granularity that is useful for managers making business decisions. And the other thing this has an impact on is it has an impact on performance, right? Because it doesn't have to recalculate every time you ask for something. Now, what's kind of interesting about this is in doing this, we give Power BI a special type of formula related to these cube functions. We've created a DAX function which calculates the total sales at any level in the hierarchy for province or category. So if you drop this into a matrix for example, inside Power BI, and it looks exactly like your dashboard, if I go up a level and say, give me the average by province, no problem. There it is. It's accurate and it's instant because it's not calculating. It's actually in there. It's a true OLAP table in the old style. It's like the results of MOLAP or HOLAP or ROLAP. It's the result brought to you. It's a cube in the true sense. Now, let's keep going here. 2 more to go. Oh, I'm in the wrong file, okay? Let's say, I'm not going to save that. Let's go here, okay. Dynamic arrays. Now, dynamic arrays haven't been around very long, but dynamic arrays are perfectly compatible with XLPublish. If you want to say, I want to publish my sales by city, what I'm doing here is I'm using the sort and the unique function to get a list of cities out of a table in this file. And then I'm also calculating the sales of each of these cities using a classic number sign nomenclature. If I go back to that table here, back over here, data table, and I change the name of this to Chicoutimi XXX. Chicoutimi is the home of the famous ex-prime minister, Mr. Jean Chrétien, as if any of you know or care. But anyway, what's happened is this, because the joy of a dynamic array, which means you don't have to hit refresh like a pivot table, which I personally am perfectly happy with refreshing pivot tables, but that's just me. This is now automatically picked up Chicoutimi XXX, and it's automatically got the numbers. And down here, I actually created this the same way. Oh, come back here, please. Okay, sorry. Go away. Thank you. I actually created this, thank you, by using a tag just like I would normally, a tag of a named area, and it created this, a non-named area, a non-named area. And it created this formula here. Now, this originally would have been here probably. I can put this anywhere. If I drag it down to here, it's going to ignore the total, which is what I want, because I want to recalculate the total in my data. And so it's really only selecting this range. And you're saying, well, what if it keeps expanding? If you're building a dynamic array, you have got to accept the fact that you can't put anything below it. Or you have to say, if I'm never going to have 100 rows in this, I'll make it 150 rows long, right? Add half again or whatever. Because like I said, if you have blank rows in a table created by XLPublish, we just delete them. We totally ignore them. And so you just make sure that this data, this XLP formula is far enough down that it'll work fine. Now, there's one last thing that I'm not going to go on very long about because I'm almost out of time. And it's this. This is called an unpivot. I have a classic spreadsheet in Excel with subtotals, okay? And then at the bottom, I'm totaling the subtotals, right? It's just like you could have sums of each section and then you could go equals this plus that plus that. It doesn't matter if you have an old spreadsheet or whatever. The whole idea is this is a classic traditional Excel model. And it even has columns here for gross margin, which are calculated by row. We have a feature called unpivot that you can apply. And I tell you, it's complicated. It's complicated, but once you get to use it, it's really easy. But here's the idea. What it does is it says, if I put a number sign here, it will put automatically for you based on your choice. It'll put number signs in certain rows, and it'll even put a number sign in certain columns. These cells with number signs indicate don't include that row and don't include this field, this column or record or field. And use this as the title for this column, region and city for that. So even though these say region and city, you can call them whatever you want in your target. And what this will do is it will unpivot this data and create a standard relational table out of this. Here, where is it? Where are you? You're unpivot. There you are, right at the front. This is the actual data from that same table that has been parsed out of our spreadsheet using these unpivot tags and the unpivot feature. So you could have a traditional spreadsheets that you've already built, and as long as you have the structure in an organized way like this, which is easy to fix as far as I can tell from my experience, but often if you're good, this is the way you do it. And we don't care if there's blanks here, because we will fill that in for you when we publish. And so what we do, we have all these things, and when the time comes to publish, we just publish them. And when I go ready for publish, look at all of these guys. And now I click publish. Now, what it's going to do is it's going to publish each one of these puppies, right? Now, it's taking a little longer because, and what takes the extra long time actually would be the number of tagged objects. The size of the tagged objects is not that big of an issue, right? So the number of tagged objects, the more you have, a little slower it takes. Plus also the size of data only impacts the saving of the target file. If that saving to the target file is, for example, in the cloud, or on a network share that's physically removed, it just can take some time. But fundamentally, if you're efficient and you got a good system, this doesn't take very long. Last time I ran it took a minute. Okay, I lied. 1 minute and 5 seconds. Okay, and so what it's doing is it's publishing these all again. So let's think it. It's opening the target file. It's going to every table saying, oh, that table existed before. It's getting rid of all the data in that table and putting in the new data. Unless it's a continuous tag, in which case it goes to the bottom and it adds the new data and tags that new data as batch number X. So if it was 1 before, it's now batch 2. And now it's completed. I'll give you an example. If I go to open target file and I go to continuous, here's continuous. You'll notice it has a published number 1, which was 11th of August at 1404. Here's tag number 2, which is at 1534. Here's tag number 3, which is at 1604. And then the one we just did says 1609. You know why it doesn't say at 12? It's because I didn't refresh the pivot table, or I didn't refresh it. Sorry about that. Okay, well I can easily do that. I'll just close this and go back. Interesting thing is when you do this, if we go back and let's go data refresh all. If we go back and publish again, in the case of a continuous, it will ask us whether we want to publish, or it'll give us the option to overwrite the last publish in all continuous tables. Now I'm going to use it here. And what it's going to do is going to replace that one we just published with the proper one, which hopefully will have the right date. And if it doesn't have the right date, it's because of my spreadsheet, not because of XLPublish, I should add. And what I'm doing here, by the way, now is I'm doing something I never, ever do in a presentation, as I'm improvising to show you this. This wasn't on my map to show you today. So my assumption is it'll work. And so what it's going to end up doing, well, it seems to have gotten past everything, so I think we're okay so far. And let's go see if it really did update the date in the pivot table. It's publishing, saving the target file, and now it's publishing it to, well, then it's going to publish it to my workspace. This is cool, by the way. I'm using an Azure VM, which is incredibly inexpensive, easy to use, easy to get. And in fact, you can turn it off when you're not using the VM, like for presentations, and it doesn't charge you anything. It only charges you when you use it. So my Azure VM ends up being used a few times a month, and it costs me a few bucks a month. And it's like less than 10 bucks a month to have an Azure VM. And I can upgrade the performance for a day and then turn it back down to a lesser machine, and I only pay for a premium for the time I use it at the higher level. This isn't an ad for Azure VMs, but that's what I did. So let's see if this thing that I'm so excited about talking about works. City cells, where was it? It was continuous, right? Okay, so let's go to the bottom here of continuous. And I am so smart. This is correct. If I could only use a mouse, I'd be a lot easier. Okay, at the bottom here, it has changed to 812 at 243. So there you go. And it is number 9. Okay? Now, what we've got here is all of this data in these files. It's automatically saved, by the way, every time you publish. The data in the target file is completely secured, that it is secured with a password that you can't change except by actually changing the file. Now, I have, in order to, because I know it's late there, and it's past you guys' bedtime. I understand. I want to, I was going to show you something else, but instead I'm going to go right to my last points. XLPublish does not change your existing models. If you used to use an existing model, it does change it if you choose that tag where you have the little formula in the bottom right that indicates where the upper left is. And that's the only change. And the number signs in the unpivot. That's the only change that XLPublish makes. Everything else is in range names, where we just capture what you chose into range names, and they get recycled next time you go to publish. Second of all, XLPublish is a pure Excel add-in. It has no external support files, DLLs and stuff. It does not need to be installed. You could just drop it in your desktop and double click it and then use it in Excel automatically. But you can also, and when you download it from our website, it'll automatically attach it to Excel. But again, that's not an install. That's just selecting an Excel add-in. So you really aren't installing a new program. You know what you're doing? You're bringing in a new file and it has VBA in it. So if you bring a new file from outside that's got VBA in it, you don't have to get that cleared through the security people necessarily. And so there you go. Plus it's a compiled add-in, therefore you cannot get into our code. Okay, and it is licensed to you personally, and we control that is licensed to you personally. So you cannot give it to your desk mate and have him install it without registering with us and becoming a valid user. And then the interesting thing that we discovered by accident, you know how I said that all it does is save range names? That means that XLPublish will work with Excel web files, no problem. All it means is you have to go open in Excel, in the upper right, and actually open the file in Excel, in Windows. Somebody, hopefully the developer of the source file. And then they configure it for XLPublish, and then you publish it, see how it works, and then you save it and close it. And then your people can go back to opening it and using it in Excel for the web. No problem at all. Then next time you want to refresh it, you open the file in Excel for Windows and you republish it. Capiche? All right. I don't know, is there anybody from Italy there? Capiche? Right? So you end up making this compatible. And the reason why that is because this whole project is an Excel Windows add-in. And Excel Windows has all the toys, all the bells and whistles to pull off what we've done. We're using every single last piece of Excel in order to accomplish this. And we're using Power Query, and we're using Power Pivot, and we're using advanced pivot tables in our code. But the thing that actually takes a little time is that it's VBA, and anybody who's VBA knows it's a little slow, right? But the faster the computer and the more RAM and the faster the processors, the quicker it's going to be. And again, I say to people, well, then do it manually and see if you like it. Now, my conclusion then is that let's go back to, and let's turn off sharing so you can see my ugly face again. And I can tell you're actually looking at me. My conclusion on this is that with XLP, which we call it XLP because we're friends, but it's XLPublish, you can do all your data management for your Power BI reports in Excel. You relationships, DAX, measures, number formatting, and then you use Power BI for the distribution story you are creating. You can use XLPublish quickly and easily, or you can dig into its advanced features, many of which I haven't shown yet. So let me go and show you one last thing, and then we're going to go. I've got to go to Zoom, and I have to share, and then I'm going to be open for questions. And since you seeing that? Okay.
Yeah.
There's an interesting feature here that I'm going to show you. And I'm going to use this file here. This file is my big ass file. This is actually got 300 and some thousand records. This is everybody Excel person has a COVID file, right? Okay. And this one's been run every day since the beginning of April with no problem. And it is based at its core on XLPublish. And say I have this file, any file I want, and it's creating, what I can do is I can go to the XLPublish menu and I can get this out of my face, there we are, and I can click on Create Report File. Now Create Report File lets me pick any file, but you've got to actually choose the XLP underscore files. So these are the target files. So you pick a target file and it pops up a list of the objects in that file. So if I go here and I say, okay, I'm interested in only this. I want to create a report of only this. And I'm going to choose comparisons. Now I'm doing something that has blown up on me before. But I think David fixed this. This is the whole thing. There's one last bug. Well, there should be no frickin' bugs in this thing. When we ship it, that's my goal. It doesn't ship until there's no bugs. Okay, so now, it looks like it's working. What we've done, and it's taking a time because what it's actually doing is connecting to the target file to the table I chose. And it's creating a Power Query connection to that data. There it is. And it's creating in this table that this target file, this data set is connected. And if I go up here, it didn't create it, damn it. Okay, there we go. I know. There we go. I blew my demo. Good for me. I know exactly what I did wrong. I am sorry. Is a lingering little bug I just discovered. If you only select one table, it will not bring up that data. Damn it. Am I allowed to curse when I screw up? Okay, here we go.
Sure.
And look how easy this is. I'm going to go create another frickin' report file. And I'm going to choose tag examples. And I'm going to choose every frickin' table in this file. You guys know what frickin' means, right? I spent a fair amount of time working in Holland for an Englishman. So I've learned a lot of English swear words. For a long time, though, I thought chuffed was a bad thing. And now I'm watching Ted Lasso and I'm learning a bunch of new ones. I guess the one I learned on Ted Lasso was wanker, I suppose. Have any of you guys seen that? I hope so. See it. It's a great little show. So what it's doing is it's republishing and it's creating all these queries in this Excel file. And it's because I chose more than one table, it'll work. Now, why is it taking so long? It's taking so long because it's the first time. It's actually creating the models in relationship. What's interesting, it brings all data, plus also all DAX measures, all relationships, everything from the target file into this file. Now, once you've done that, then in Excel, you can do whatever you want. You can create your charts, you can create everything. Here's our report file, okay? So let's go and let's show you what a report file can actually look like. This is an Excel, okay, that'll work. This is an Excel file. Get out of my face here, please, thank you. An Excel file, and it has connections to pivot tables and info. And this data then, if I go to this query and I open it, we automatically created this Power Query object for you. So we automatically created the code that automatically points to this object. Now, and then you can create anything you want in Excel. Let's try to pick you another example. I have report tag examples. Here's another one. How sexy is that one? It's even got colors and that make some sense, okay, right? And so here is another example. Now, last point, and then I'm out of here. Or I'm available for questions if you guys want to hang around. If I publish this now and send this file to people, it's only going to include the summary data that I published to the target file. You get it? The same data I would have published to Power BI. It's the same data. It's only summary data. So I've extracted the risk of details about individuals, about clients, about employees, about suppliers, things that you don't want to publish into a place where the whole world can see them. Especially, you don't want to be sending spreadsheets around with all that information in them. Second of all, if the people who receive it have rights to the same folder that the target file is in, they can refresh it just by going data or refresh all. And that lets them refresh it. But in the real world, more than often not, okay, see, I don't have rights, so it won't do it. And it's because I'm in my virtual machine. That's fine. But the point is that if it fails like that, that's no big deal. The data's still there. the person will do that once and say, well, I guess I better not do that again. It's not that the file goes bad. The file is basically saying, sorry, this is all the data you get. So if it's once a month, you can just send it out once a month in email, or you can drop it and replace the file that's in a shared folder once a month with the new set of data. Is that clear as mud? All right, so let's go out of here. I have one last thing. We hope to hear from you soon. This is mine and David's email addresses, including my personal email address for my own company, PLogic, which is actually the holder of the XLPublish copyright. And here's in red is kind of interesting, isn't it? As an attendee here today, you can request a perpetual XLPublish license within the next month by reaching out. Oh, damn it, I got a spelling error. Out to one of the emails above. Now, you know how I put in fine print within the next month? I'm not totally locked into that, but you know what I mean. Please within the next month. Because we may change our mind and start charging a month from now. But if we start charging people, your perpetual license goes on forever for free. All right? And that's it, guys and gals. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. I'm going to stop sharing. And I hope you guys reach out to me and ask me for a copy of this thing so we can get more people using it and get happy results and go from there. Questions, please.
Awesome. Thanks, Dick.
Oh, I lost somebody. Somebody says, I'm leaving the recording. All right. Okay. You should hear Romanian curses. Oh, yeah, I should, really. Eh? That's a good idea. I'll bet they're special. They're special. But I also learned, bollocks and stuff like that. And I think your favorite curse starts with F or C, whereas ours starts with F. Does the tag. Okay. Anybody got any questions? I hope somebody has a question.
I had one, actually, if it's all right.
Thank you very much. Who's me?
I'm Claire Squibb.
Oh, hello. I think we've run into each other somewhere.
Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But I was just wondering, you were making a bit of a point about moving the green tag down and sort of out of the way if you're going to be expanding your array.
Yep.
Which is fine. Is that automatically placed, or could you put it somewhere else anyway, like above the table or to the right of the table?
No, because it is the cell up and to the left of that cell is the bottom right-hand corner of the
So
table.
it has to be...
It has to be down below.
It has to be
one
down
column
below.
over and at least one row below your data. Now, if you put it down, you can always format it hidden, right? I know that's kind of a hassle.
No, that would be dangerous because then you wouldn't know if you were bumping into it.
Well, you hopefully will
Except
be
you get a
responsible
spill
with
error.
your own file. But if you have other people using it, yeah. But the other idea, and this is really important, Claire, is that in this case, then you're formatting in Excel and making it pretty isn't as important as making sure the data's right.
Oh yeah.
Now, right? And then you publish, and then you do the pretty stuff in Power BI or in the Excel report writer. Capisce?
Yeah. Okay.
So it may not be pretty, but and really, if I hit something and it's my file, you shouldn't really be passing these around, but you can. If an office has a license, you could pass these files around, and it would work fine. Mm-hmm. Unless you have some a-hole. You know what an a-hole is? That's
yes.
That's an American phrase. Who goes in and digs with your file, right? And then you just fire them. That's all. Right?
That sounds good.
Right. I mean, that's always been the risk with Excel as long as I've been around, which is like forever. Okay.
Yeah, me too. I started out in VisiCalc back in the day.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah,
so we've earned
1979.
every one of these white hairs. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah.
But at least that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I still love it. I think it's the greatest thing. And to me, I've always said it, spreadsheets are forever. There will always be a need for spreadsheets. Yep. It's always going to be there. And people are always going to use them badly. So they can always get better at it. and companies are always going to underuse it and use it wrong. Get me going on that, right? Okay. But anyway, another question? Please, somebody's got to have a question. Oh, did everybody leave? How many people are here? I lost 20 people. Oh, well, okay. So anyway, that's it. And like I said, send me an email. And Alan, I graduated from military high school. All right. That's interesting. Looking forward to trying it out. Great stuff. I'm very pleased that a couple of my good friends dropped in and to see this. I don't know whether they survived the whole time because they're overseas as well. But I hope they did. Anyway, thank you, Alan, for letting me do this.
No worries, buddy. Thank you.
You think does anybody think that they might find this useful? You can unmute yourself and say yes, and then mute yourself again.
Yes.
Not for personal use, but maybe at my work. But yeah, maybe.
Well, this is the whole thing is for work, right? Yeah. This is designed for people who get paid to use spreadsheets for a business where the results have to be reliable, consistent, pretty. They got to be pretty now, right?
And easy.
And secure, right? Don't go sending a whole bunch of personal information around. And easy. And trust me, this is easy to use. Interesting trick. If for some reason you delete the target file at any time, obviously you'll have a backup, but no problem. XLPublish will recreate it from scratch every time.
Dick, I have a question. It's
Please
Christian.
go. Who's I?
It's Christian Angel from Romania.
Hello. How are you?
Hi. On the first example, you had something like a pivot that was hiding the personal data. So you said that you don't want to expose the personal data.
Yeah.
Isn't it the same if you do with the Power Query same type of thing and use the Excel as a source? How much faster is using the Excel Addin versus doing that grouping and using the group source as the source for the Power BI file?
Well, you're saying that Power Query will be faster than using a pivot table? Is that basically what you're saying?
No, basically you did a kind of grouping with a pivot table there that you used using the Addin to publish to Power BI.
I publish it, yeah.
Okay, what if I would do the same kind of grouping using Power Query in the source file, and using that one as a source directly in Power BI?
Like clinking it from Power BI directly to that table that's resulted in, you got to drop it to a worksheet,
file,
right?
Use the result from the Power Query as a source for the Power BI. How much better is the Addin versus this version?
Okay, are you using Power Query in Power BI? So you, for example, create a Power Query in Power BI desktop? That's what you're saying?
Yes.
It's still employed.
Okay, so that's the idea. So
the question by itself is different.
What's faster? Yeah.
I have the details, the file that you showed me.
Right.
But I don't want to expose the details. And in the same Excel file, I'm using Power Query to do a group by.
Right.
And do the pivot that you had on the second sheet.
Right.
And then I use that Excel file as a source for the Power BI.
So where's the data from where's the data of your Power Query in Excel stored? Just up in the data model or down in the worksheet?
No, in Excel. So I'm keeping everything in Excel.
So you drop it down into Excel as a table, correct?
Yes. So the result of the Power Query will be loaded in the same Excel file as the source, details file, and I'm using that table as a source. How much?
Okay, and you're saying, fine. If you're using it as a source, it's probably going to be faster because it's a table. But a table is all you can publish from Excel into Power BI is a table. So what we're giving you is also the results of pivot tables that you may already rely on, We're also giving you range names. We're also giving you dynamic arrays. We're also giving you just ranges of cells. We're giving those, plus we're giving you an intermittent publish, plus we're giving you a consolidation. We're giving you all those features. And yes, it will be slightly faster if you just publish it. But here's an interesting problem. If you publish from Excel, and you have any kind of a data model, even the dinkiest little data model table, all that you will publish is the data model. So this result of your Power Query will only be up in the data model to get published. But then everything in your data model will get published to Power BI, whether you like it or not. And that means that could be millions of records, and you don't want to publish that. You just want the results, right? So what we've done is said, no, everything's just got to be in the spreadsheet. That's it. You drop it in the spreadsheet, and you can pick it and we publish it. And so it doesn't, your data model can be humongous, right? But in your question, if all I have is one data table that's created by Power Query, yeah, it's a little faster. But this is really easy to do, right? You just go click. If you have a table, like if I show you quickly, that's what I'm doing back here in my big ass file. I guess I closed it. My big ass file is here. I am already doing that.
I got my answer. So
pardon?
Yes. I think I got my answer for.
But I'm just going to show you something. This file here has 360,000 records in it, this table. But it is actually based on 4 tables that are on the web that are each over 3 million records each, because they're in detail all over the world. And what I'm doing is I'm consolidating that into a group in Power Query, and then this is a table that's the result of that group. And yes, if I save this file, it could be published just by using this one table, absolutely. But it wouldn't work for this, and it wouldn't work for that, and it wouldn't work for this, right? Okay, all these other different types.
For some specific files where you have tables, the normal use case is okay, but all the other ones cannot be done without the add-in that you have.
Right, so you might as well use the add-in for everything so that you then can have consistency across everything, right?
I'll send you an email tomorrow because I want to play with it.
And the different timing is not big, okay? And the other thing is you actually have a dialog box to manage what you've selected, right? And you've got all kinds of bells and whistles in here to add to your stuff. For example, if I go into my target file, I have to. I'm in a report file. So let's go to a source file. Here, tag examples. If I go into a target file, I can go and add value by going into queries and connections, and I can actually add new connections in my target file. So I've assembled my data from my original file, and then I can merge it together. And then if I merge those into a report file, I can merge that data together from multiple files. I can build multiple measures that cross over that, and then I can publish the results of the report to Power BI, right? Or I can just use it as a report. We do so many more things than just that one issue that you're talking about, and I'm willing to say, yeah, it might be a little faster, but I don't give a crap, right?
Yeah,
any other questions?
This is what I wanted to check whether my understanding was right, because for that specific
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But I wanted to sell our vision and why we said, well, that's okay. When we started this, we started talking about this 3 years ago. We are more convinced of the power of this than ever now. I have never had a setback in my mind of saying, are we wasting our time? But the thing that's funny, and I guess I'll show you guys something that I talked with Alan before. That's right. It's this. Have you ever seen this cartoon? And the reason I told Alan I don't always show it because I don't want to insult anybody. But that's really what I worry about. And I see a lot of it.
Yeah, it's nothing shared at the moment, mate. No sharing.
I'm not sharing. Okay, well then that might work better, wouldn't it? Okay, so let's share it. And here you go.
Here we go. Yeah.
Anybody see? Okay. And I run into that all the time. Oh, no. We already know how to do that. We don't have to change it.
Yeah, and I had a discussion like this just today with somebody in my company. So I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, and it's a real problem for Excel people, because Excel people are going to be left in the dust if they don't. You can those wheels could be Power Query. Those wheels could also be the data model, right? Those wheels could be dynamic arrays, right? And Excel people have to wake up and because the problem is that, like I said, there's so many people out to kill Excel. So many auditors out there saying, "Oh, this isn't Excel." Excel is actually sort of at risk if we are not disciplined and we do not take it seriously, right? Sorry for being preachy. Excuse me, I'm drinking my lemonade.
I think I think with the question, trying to pick everything you were saying there from Christian, I think the other thing which Martin has said in the chat as well is that between publishing with XLPublish and importing a table and using Power Query to group it, is obviously by using Power BI to bring it in and group it, people still have access to that data because it's been imported.
Yes.
So XLPublish will just obviously using a pivot table is just going to publish the results, isn't it?
You can publish the results. They go into a target file and they can just do what you want with them.
It's the security again, isn't it? Is a big thing.
Well, if security of your results is a problem, then don't push them up to the web. Just keep them in the same folder as the source file.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying the security aspects of XLPublish is the other advantage there.
Oh, you're selling my product. You're not criticizing it. Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
I'm too defensive. Yeah, well, that's right. Martin made a point here. He says the difference is that you then redistribute. You're redistributing all your source file if you use the traditional Excel features or the Power Query features. And you don't want to do that. You want to just publish the results and keep your detailed data behind your firewall and proverbially in your own personal space that only you and IT can get at, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
In case you get hit by a truck. The other thing this does is it ends up bringing, if you use it on a corporate level, it can bring standardization to your whole use of Excel without changing any of your Excel models, right? I mean, you're not changing anything. You're just changing how you distribute the results of your Excel models. And some people have said too that, well, what if we go to web? Well, I've answered that question. I think that's really important. Because one, I don't think people are going to go to the web to do serious spreadsheeting. It could be a long time or never. Second of all the bells and whistles are in Excel for Windows. And so there's no way you could do what we've done using JavaScript or OfficeScript. It's just not possible. The capability just doesn't exist and never will exist. But to dip it back into the Windows world on one person's desktop who has a Windows desktop, which will be everybody, probably, and publish it from there is not a big stretch. It's not a problem, right? But everybody can happily pound away in their browser. Anything else?
Not from me.
Well, I'd like to thank everybody for coming, guys. And I'm pleased that I only had like two errors, and both of those were because I'm stupid. Oh, here's a question, and it's from Brandon, so it's going to be a nasty question, I know. Does your app include digital signatures? No, in addition to the dashboard that shows who last updated it. Well, actually, it does in a sense. Let me show you quickly. Desktop, fine, thank you. Okay, thank you guys for your visit. Okay, let's go here. Every time we create a publish, the date and time and the user gets published with that. okay? And so that allows us to do stuff like this. Boom, 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 boom. We have a table in the file. The reason I'm pausing is because Power BI takes a long time to load, as you know. You see this here says 8:12 at 1:31 p.m. Mm-hmm. That is in a table that we produce. And that is not a digital tag, but it's a tag that says, this is when this file was last updated. And it also has who updated it, right? So if I were to open, so here we go, COVID. This is enter my email, Dick Moffat. How's that for a email address? All right, so let's go. Yeah. I don't know why it keeps asking me this. Thank you. Okay, file, COVID map, PBIX.
You can close the one.
I had it right there, actually. So let's open it. Okay, so let's go back here. There's a table we create called table info, we create this every time, which has the last refresh. And so, for example, this last refresh is what I'm using in this particular control on this field, right? Now, as far as security, if I go out of here and I go into my target file, I cannot change anything in here. It's protected, okay? And it's protected with a password that is, we don't even know. The only person who can change this data is a person who has the source file and updates it from the source file. So it's secure, right? You cannot change that data, right? Unless you change it in the source file. Now, we're talking, I'm sorry, but we're talking Excel here. So even the original source file has a certain amount of flux that you can screw things up. But if you end up locking everything down so that nobody can move, then nobody's going to get anything done, right? So, it's one thing if your data is in your line of business and it's invoicing detailed data, that's got to be locked in stone because it's real. That's different, or financial data. But when in Excel, you need that flexibility. That's the strength of Excel. And Brandon also said, could you look at it in properties and see a log of who's walked around? Yeah, well, that's right. We have a log that actually shows who has changed every file, every time it's published. Yes. But your big question, I think, relates to Excel itself. Anything else? How many? We still got 20 people left. Surely somebody has a question. Or Alan, can you say something nice again?
You look very good today, Dick.
Just kidding.
Love your beard.
What?
I like your beard.
You like my beard? I'm working up my Santa Claus look.
I didn't want to say anything.
I've even got the stomach. I got the stomach for it. Not long ago, like days ago, actually, I look somewhat different, and I will show you.
I'm going to close down the YouTube stream, guys, while we're doing this.
Okay, whatever.
Live.
Yeah. Here we go. Here we go.